Okay, today we're going to cover chapter 10, lesson 3, which is the operation of radical expressions. Your goal is to combine the two radicals together. Okay, before you combine the two radicals together, make sure what's underneath of the radicands needs to be the same. Okay, it needs to be the same for you to combine it. Okay, in this case, number 1a, the two radicals, which is radical 2, it is exactly the same thing. So I can just combine the two together. How I'm going to do that is I'm looking at the 7. Hold on, let me change the color. So the 7 and the 8, since the 2 is the same, that I just take 7 minus 8, okay, and then the radical 2 stays the same. Let me change that back to black, and that radical 2 stay the same. Okay, so we just do like a normal subtraction. It's -1, and then it is radical 2. Okay, since radical 2 is simplified, because there's nothing that I can factor it out to have a pair of 2's. Okay, so therefore -1 radical 2 is simplified. Or you sometimes, well, you see this a lot, it means exactly the same thing. Okay, on number 1b, 5 is the same under the radicals. So all I need to do is combine the two. Hold on, let me do it. Take the 5 plus the 2, and then I'll just bring the radical 5. Okay, same thing. It is 7, and then radical 5. 5 is simplified, so therefore that is the simplified radical. Okay, let's take this for examples. If I were to look at this, the 7 and the 8 is not the same. So I cannot just combine the 4 and the 2 together. Before I do that, I need to factor out the 28. Remember, you learned from the previous lessons, you can break this up as the 4 and the 7. Your whole goal here is to find a perfect square. It doesn't have to go all the way prime, but your goal is to find a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is 28, I have a 4. Hold on. And then I have, not plus, 4 times 7. And then I just need to break that out. Okay, that's going to give me radical 4. Hold on, let me change this to a blue so it stays consistent. So I have radical 4, then have radical 7. Okay, what I have now is, this is not a 2. Hold on, let me erase this one right here. Let me change it back into a radical 4. Okay, so I should have 2. Square root of 4 is 2. And then radical 7. Okay, what I have up here, I need to rewrite it. Okay, let me combine these. This should give me a 4 radical 7. Then this give me a 4 radical 7. Let me erase this. And then you're going to have, since they're the same already, I can combine 4 plus 4. Radical 7. It's not done. So I'm going to have 8 radical 7, and that is my simplest form. Okay, same thing with number 2b. So 32, I can make it as 5. 32 is, I'm looking at 16 and 2. 18, I'm going to have 9 and 2. I'm going to split it up. So that should give me 5 radical 16 radical 2 minus 4 radical 9 radical 2. Okay, 5, I'm going to rewrite it. 16, radical 16 is 4. Remember, I only do the multiplication. It is all multiplication except for this one right here. So 4, I'm going to take a square root of 9, which gives me a 3 radical 2. So I should have 20 radical 2 minus 12 radical 2. Okay, since they're both the same already, I can just combine them together. I should have 20 minus 12 in radical 2. That should give me 8 radical 2. And that is simplified. Okay. Okay, let's look at this one right here. Okay. This is a monomial times a binomial. Okay. What you're going to do is use the distributive property. So you're going to have a radical 2 times a radical 6 plus a radical 2 times a radical 5. Okay, you're going to have a radical 12 plus a radical 10. Okay, and I'm asking myself, is square root of 12 is a perfect square? It is not a perfect square, but I know if I were to factor it out, it should give me a perfect square in there, okay? So it's going to give me, hold on, radical 2, radical 2 times 5, hold on, radical 2 times 5 is not, it's going to give me times 5, so that should give me 5 radical 2. Okay, so I'm going to split up. The 12 is 4 times 3 plus 5 times 2. Okay, so I can split this up. That should give me a radical 4 times a radical 3 plus 5 times radical 2. Oops, hold on. So this should give me 2 radical 3 plus 5 radical 2. Since both of the radicals, what's inside the radical is not the same, there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, number C, it is binomial times a binomial. It means I have to use FOIL. Okay, let's go ahead and use FOIL. So what I have, I'm doing the first, and I'm gonna do the, and do the outer. So that's gonna give me radical 6 times 3 radical 6, and then I'm gonna do the inner. That's minus 2 radical 3 times 4 radical 3, and I'm gonna do last. So that's gonna be minus 2 radical 3 times 3 radical 6. Okay, let me combine like terms. Let me multiply together. This should give me 4 radical 18 plus 3, oh my goodness, 3 radical 36 minus 8 radical 9 minus 6 radical 18. Okay. Yesterday I said you can figure out this one right here. If a number, a radical, multiply itself, it normally give you that. Okay. In this case, you have radical 6 times a radical 6. Sorry, it's not 3. It's supposed to be 6. Okay, a radical multiply itself will give you that number itself. The reason is that this one right here give you radical 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay, let me continue. So this one right here, hold on, let me get the like terms. This one right here and this one right here is exactly the same. So I'm going to take 4 times minus 6 radical 18. And then I'm going to have here plus 3 times 6 minus 8 times 3. So when I'm here, I'm going to take negative 2 times 3 radical 2 minus 6. This should give me negative 6 radical 2 minus 6. Okay. Okay, yesterday you learned how to get rid of the radical in the denominator. There's only one numbers on the denominator. We call rationalize the denominator, meaning you just multiply itself on the denominator. Today, you have two terms, meaning you are going to do the conjugate. Okay, it technically means the same thing. Hey, let's get rid of the denominator by multiply the top and multiply the negative and the bottoms by the negative. Okay, right here, because it's plus, you need to multiply it by a negative. If it's negative, you multiply by a plus. Okay, so what you're gonna have, the top one is, we use the distributive property. So it goes back to the distributive property, meaning you take negative 3 times radical 10 minus radical 5. On the bottom, you are going to have radical 10 plus radical 5, radical 10 minus radical 5. Okay, remember, this is what we call the difference of the two perfect square. Okay, when you see that, you only need the first terms, and then you are combined with the last terms. Okay? Okay. If I were to do the middle terms, the outer and the inner, meaning it's going to cancel each other out. So I did the distributive property right here. And then I did the FOIL, but I know it is the difference of the two perfect square. So I just do the last terms, which is this one right here. And I do the, first terms and then the last terms right here. So I should have negative 3 radical 10. I'll just rewrite it because they're not the same term, so I cannot do anything about it. So here I should have 10 minus 5. So that should give me negative 3 radical 10 plus 3 radical 5 over 5. Okay, since I'm into the radical, I cannot do anything about it. So it is this in the simplest form at this point. How do